Is Star Wars about to make a huge mistake? We've made a lot of videos here recently about Dave Filoni and his movie and the upcoming Ahsoka series. And as I woke up here on this Sunday morning, right here before I go to church, and I'm looking at Star Wars news, I came across an article that there's some points in here that I really agree with. Some causes for concern. And it deals with Filoni's characters and Star Wars animation. And that's exactly what I want to talk about in this video today. Dave Filoni is essentially on trial. Is he going to give us great Star Wars with this movie and the Ahsoka series? We'll find out very soon with the Ahsoka series, but let's see what this article is saying. And there's definitely some interesting points here to think about and be concerned about. Let's get into it.
Echo 3 to Echo 7. Mono, buddy. 3
Echo Station 3PA.
All right, so this article comes to us from Inverse. Star Wars might be making its biggest fan service mistake. So let's see exactly what they are saying here. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger for everybody so you can see it a little easier. There we go. So, is Star Wars animation better than live action? Yes, it is. Depending on who you ask, the animated series are some of the strongest projects under the Lucasfilm banner. Well, actually, let me take that back. The Bad Batch is not. Clone Wars Season 7? Yeah. Rebels? It's good. But, okay. Actually, I'm not sure. The problem here is that a lot of the live action has not been good either. So, for years, it was the only consistent product, aside from the video games and novels, that Lucasfilm was putting out. George Lucas's prequel films got a lot of flack for prioritizing lore and advancing technology over creating a strong story. And that's justifiable flack as well. George Lucas was too concerned about technology and advancing filmmaking rather than the story. I agree with that. After the era came to a close with Revenge of the Sith, it fell to animated series like Star Wars: The Clone Wars to bring color and context to the new world. And I agree with that. So far, so good. The Clone Wars ushered in a very different kind of Star Wars story. With the animated series, Lucasfilm could take their time, plan their stories right, and introduce characters that would eventually become fan favorites. Lucasfilm executive Dave Filoni, now best known for his work on The Mandalorian and the forthcoming Ahsoka series. You're actually wrong. Dave Filoni is definitely best known for Clone Wars and Rebels. Helped guide animation out of its role as the fixer. Before long, shows like Star Wars Rebels were able to stand on their own. Now they're calling the shots in live action. So let me just break in here and say this. Dave Filoni is not the only person that created the Clone Wars. The Clone Wars definitely made the prequels better, but to say that he did that himself without George Lucas's input and influence, come on now. He did help fix Star Wars for a time, but Lucas was right there with him. Here we go. Until Filoni's yet untitled Mandoverse film hits theaters in the future, Ahsoka may just represent the culmination of his efforts in the Star Wars galaxy. It's clearly a labor of love for Filoni. He wrote all of Ahsoka's 8 episodes alone, and the series will shepherd his most beloved animated characters into live action for the first time. Sabine Wren, Hera Syndulla, and Ezra Bridger will all appear in the new series, as will Rebels villain Grand Admiral Thrawn. Ahsoka will also pick up the threads that Rebels left behind in its cliffhanger of a series finale, which has some fans warily referring to Ahsoka as the long-awaited continuation of the animated show. So let me just break in and say this. One of my biggest issues with Ahsoka and Dave Filoni, and the series Ahsoka now, is that, and I said this in our live stream last night, he is leapfrogging an entire era of Star Wars, which just so happens to be the most important era of Star Wars that we've ever had, the original trilogy. You went back to a prequel era before A New Hope with your Rebels crew and Ahsoka, and you're jumping all the way over years of Star Wars lore and continuity to bring them in now, set 5 to 8 years after Return of the Jedi. That, to me, doesn't bode well. How many of you guys watch the original trilogy and you have a thought, and I hate this thought. Where was Ahsoka? Where was Sabine Wren? Where was Chopper? Where was Bo-Katan? And that's something that we shouldn't have to think about. I cannot stand retroactive, backwards storytelling. I just don't like it. It doesn't make sense. So I will say that. Let's continue with the article. According to the series cast and crew, no one is trying to turn Ahsoka into Rebels Season 5. That's what he says. Still, it's not such an easy thing to believe when so much evidence points to the contrary. Filoni has a clear passion for the animated characters he helped create, and as he transitions into the new medium, he obviously wants to bring them along for the ride. But folding them into live action without compromising their legacy is a delicate balance, one I'm not sure Lucasfilm is able to achieve. Even in the Star Wars galaxy, animation carries a stigma. Shows like The Clone Wars began as a series for kids, though they eventually grew with their audience and took on darker themes. Swaths of Star Wars fans still deem them as lesser. Filoni claims to hold animation in high esteem, but his recent actions only vindicate the vocal minority, reintroducing animated characters in live action, and with designs that pale in comparison to their original appearance, seems designed to undermine the importance of their arcs in their original medium. Filoni assures fans that they won't have to watch Rebels in order to understand Ahsoka, but how will Ahsoka continue Rebels' story without retconning the former series? Now, I'm not so much worried about Filoni retconning elements and pieces of the Clone Wars or Rebels. That happens in live action. That happens when a live action show or a movie happens and elements of a book are retconned. I totally understand that. I like to avoid it if possible. But sometimes it might be an improvement. Sometimes it might even be better. But the thing that concerns me about Filoni is I'm not sure what kind of storyteller in the live action medium he's going to be, especially with this bringing his characters of old into the new era. That's something that until he proves that he's able to pull that off, I am skeptical. And I think that's a fair thing to say. The article continues and closes. It's not exactly fair to argue that animation and live action should remain separate. A lot of good has come from the symbiosis between the mediums. But Star Wars is making a concerted effort to phase everything back into live action. That's true. And it doesn't bode well for the future of animation. I agree with that too. Animation is the very thing that helped get Star Wars back on its feet. I agree. And if new projects can't honor the characters that gave the franchise new life, then animation is where they should stay. I'll just finish here. Until Dave Filoni proves the ability to make great live action Star Wars, I don't know if I'm on board. I definitely don't have the confidence going into this this is going to be great. Do I like Ahsoka? Yeah, I love the character. I love the character of Ahsoka. It makes me think back to a time where Star Wars was a little bit different. Now we're getting what we're getting, and Filoni, in my opinion, has a lot to prove to us, the Star Wars fandom. Let me know in the comments what you think about this role of animation in live action. Do you think it's too much? Are you skeptical? Why or why not? Do I have it right or wrong? Let me know. Thank you guys so much for being at Echo Base Network here today, where we will continue to hold Lucasfilm accountable and celebrate the Star Wars that we love with you guys. Thank you very much. You are Echo Base Network. May the Force be with you, and I'll see you on the next one.